At some point, and most people genuinely cannot tell you when, not even approximately, you stopped asking whether this was the right life. You started asking how to make the current one hurt less. That's not a small shift. I want you to actually sit with that, because it reads like something you'd scroll past a line in a self-help caption, easy to nod at and keep moving. But the mechanics of it are worth looking at directly. The moment you stop asking the first question, you've answered it, not out loud, not in any way you'd say at dinner, but in the way that counts in the daily choices, in what you tolerate, in what you've reclassified from unacceptable to just how things are. You've decided, this life, this arrangement, this is the one I'm keeping. And from that point forward, everything else gets run through one assumption: fixed, work within it. Machiavelli had a word for this, not a generous one. He called it being fortune's captive. The man who doesn't shape his circumstances but is shaped by them. Who doesn't choose his terrain but fights on whatever terrain he's placed on. Who has confused surviving the current arrangement with actually winning something. What Machiavelli understood, and what no career counselor will ever put in a brochure, because it doesn't close well in a 45-minute consultation, is that most people don't lose their lives to catastrophic decisions. It's not one bad morning, not one wrong turn, not one ruined year you can point to. It's 1,000 decisions that each seemed reasonable at the time. A job that was supposed to be temporary, a raise that made leaving feel irresponsible, a title that made the hours feel earned, a mortgage that made the title feel necessary. Each one logical, each one in isolation, something you could explain to someone else and they'd nod. Together, a structure so complete that by the time most people look up, they're not entirely sure there's a door. He wrote it in The Prince. Chapter Exit. The line about men judging more by their eyes than their hands, that everyone can see, but few can feel. He was talking about Florentine politics. He was also talking about your pay stub. You can see the salary, the title, the 401k, the PTO days. Numbers, right there. Real because you can point to them. What you can't see, what doesn't appear on any document you've ever been handed, is what moves in the other direction. Time that doesn't come back. Judgment that goes unexercised so long, it starts to feel like something you were never that sharp at anyway. Questions that stop getting asked because asking them, inside an arrangement that runs on you, not asking them, carries a cost you can feel without being able to name. That's the trade, not hours for dollars. That's the surface version. The actual exchange is possibility for stability. The open question for the known answer. Most people made that trade before they were old enough to understand what they were agreeing to. So let's look at it. Not to make you feel bad about where you are, not to tell you to quit anything, but because Machiavelli's entire project, the reason a 500-year-old book about Florentine politics still sells, was this: you cannot navigate a system you refuse to see accurately. So, let's see it. Rule 1. You agreed to the trade before you understood it. 82,000. That's the number. Hours. Average American career, start to finish. 22 to 63. 40 hours a week. 50 weeks a year. 82,000 hours. How long did you spend deciding what to do with them? Not the specific job, not which company. I mean the actual question underneath all of that. What are you willing to exchange your hours for? At what rate? Under what conditions? With what exit terms, when you decide you want them? Most people spend more time deciding on a car. And that's not a character flaw. It's how the system presents the choice. Nobody hands you a document that says, you are agreeing to spend the majority of your waking hours for the majority of your adult life in service of an organization's objectives in exchange for a salary set by people who have never met you, adjusted annually at a rate that may or may not track inflation, renegotiable only under conditions we will define. They hand you an offer letter, a number, a start date. The number feels real. The start date feels like a beginning. You sign. Machiavelli understood the inheritance problem. A prince who takes power inherits someone else's decisions, alliances, enemies, debts, obligations nobody disclosed. The danger isn't the inheritance. The danger is not knowing which decisions were already made and by whom and why. Most people enter the workforce exactly that way. They inherit a structure, didn't design it, didn't negotiate its fundamental terms, arrived and found it already built, and assumed, because it was presented as normal, that normal and neutral were the same thing. They aren't. The arrangement was designed by people who benefit from one side of it. That doesn't make them villains. It makes them the party that showed up to the negotiation prepared. Only one side spent serious time thinking about the terms before you walked in. The people who move through money differently, and I don't mean wealthy, I mean people with a fundamentally different relationship to how they allocate their time. They treat every employment arrangement as a contract, specific terms, leverage points, a duration that is chosen, not simply endured. They don't assume fairness. They read it. They know what they're selling, and they sell it deliberately. Most people never read it. Not the actual exchange. Not the real answer to, what am I agreeing to, and what does it cost, and for how long? 82,000 hours. Don't rush past that number. Everything else in this video lives inside it. Rule 2. You're not paid for your time, you're paid for your compliance. This is going to feel wrong at first. Stay with it. Your paycheck looks like compensation for hours. You showed up. You did the things. You got the number. Clean exchange. That's not what the wage is. Time is the unit of measurement. What the wage actually buys, what it's structured to purchase, is your predictability, your availability, the temporary suspension of your independent judgment during the hours being paid for. Think about what the job actually requires. You show up when they decide. Not when you're most productive. You work on priorities they set, not the ones you think matter. You communicate in their format, with their people, toward goals determined in rooms you weren't in. And when you see a better way, and you do, regularly, because you're not an idiot, you run it through a filter calibrated to their risk tolerance. Their existing commitments, their internal politics. You're not selling capability. You're selling your willingness to make your capability available on their terms. Chapter XX2. Machiavelli on advisors. A wise ruler surrounds himself with men who extend his judgment, not substitute their own. They think for him, not instead of him. Employment is that dynamic, inverted, scaled to millions, normalized to the point where most people inside it have stopped noticing it's a dynamic at all. 2 employees, same salary, same title. One sees a problem management hasn't found, develops a solution nobody asked for, goes off script, delivers $2 million in results the organization didn't know to request. The other executes exactly what was assigned, on time, no friction, no surprises. In most organizations, not everyone, but most, the second employee is the safer career, gets renewed, gets the incremental raise, doesn't create an uncomfortable conversation about whether the org chart needs rethinking. The first employee is a variable, and organizations are structurally in the business of reducing variance. That's what makes them scalable. The employee who introduces variance even when it pays off is in tension with the machine. The salary reflects this. It's not payment for your best thinking. It's payment for your reliable thinking, for showing up as a known quantity, week after week, in a way that can be planned around. The people who figured something out about this don't resent it. They use it. They know exactly what the salary is buying. They sell that specific thing deliberately. They do it for as long as the arrangement serves them. Then they renegotiate, or they leave. Most people sell compliance without knowing that's the product. And if you don't know what you're selling, you will never price it correctly. Rule 3. Every raise is a retention tool, not a reward. You delivered this year. Your manager said so. In words, directly. Then came the number, 4%, and somewhere in your chest, something relaxed. That feeling, that's the most expensive thing in this video. The raise is not a reward. It is a retention calculation. Someone not your manager, someone in HR, working from a spreadsheet built on turnover cost, models and salary band parameters, determined the minimum number required to reduce the probability of your departure to an acceptable level. That's what they gave you. Not a judgment of your worth, not a measurement of your contribution. The minimum viable number to keep you from having a conversation they'd prefer not to have. Here's the math nobody stapled to your offer letter. Average corporate raise, 3 to 4%. Inflation, 2022 to 2024, peaked between 4 and 8%. Median salary increase when switching employers, 10 to 20%. A 4% raise in a 5% inflation year is a pay cut. It comes with a handshake. It comes with your manager saying your name warmly and meaning it. But the number on your actual purchasing power went down. The job switch data is not a secret. HR departments have it. They build models around it. They bank correctly, most of the time on the fact that leaving is uncomfortable. The devil you know, the mortgage, the team you like, the sense that maybe next year will be different. The raise is sized to make staying feel rational. That is its function, not recognition, retention. The people who actually move the needle on their compensation understand this. They don't read a raise as a verdict on their value. They read it as information. How much does this organization want to avoid replacing me right now? That number is leverage data. And leverage is the only thing that actually moves a ceiling. We're about to talk about the ceiling, because it was built before you arrived. Rule 4. Your time off is not rest. It's maintenance. Think about the last vacation you took. Not where you went, not the photos. The day before you left. The sprint to clear the inbox. The handoff document written at 11 at night because you didn't want to come back to a disaster. The Slack messages answered in the rideshare to the airport. Just a few, just the urgent ones, just so nobody was blocked. And the day you came back. The stack, the catch-up, the meeting already on the calendar for 9 a.m., your first morning back, as if the schedule had been holding its breath, waiting for you to be reachable again. Who was that vacation for? The U.S. averages 11 paid vacation days a year. Germany, 30. France, 30. The UK, 28. The gap is not cultural generosity, not a different philosophy about work and life. It is a different answer to a specific operational question. How much recovery time does a worker need to sustain acceptable output? The American answer is 11 days. That's an engineering decision. Your rest has been calculated, not estimated, calculated. The quantity of recovery required to keep you functional enough to continue was determined, and that quantity is what you got. The fact that it feels like a benefit, like something given rather than something engineered, that's part of the design too. Machiavelli writes in the Discorsi that a disciplined army doesn't rest for the pleasure of its soldiers. It rests to fight better tomorrow. Rest is an operational input. The general who gives too much loses his edge. The general who gives too little loses his army. The number in the middle is a calculation. 11 days is the calculation. Now, Sunday. You know the feeling. I'm not going to describe it, because you already know it better than I can. It doesn't start Sunday night. It starts Sunday afternoon, sometimes Sunday lunch. This low-grade frequency in the background of whatever you're doing, the show, the meal, the conversation you're half present for, Monday loading, that's not stress. That's the system reclaiming its time before the clock officially starts. Your weekend was never entirely yours. It was sized to return, you functional. The part that bleeds back into Sunday afternoon, the part that wakes you at 3 in the morning Tuesday with a thought about a deliverable you forgot that was always priced in. The people who've exited this specific arrangement don't manage their rest differently because they're more disciplined. They manage it differently because the availability is on their terms, in service of their own outcomes, not a pre-negotiated condition of someone else's operational model. The hours might be the same, sometimes more, but the Sunday is different, because what's loading on Sunday isn't an obligation you inherited, it's something you chose. Ownership is the variable, not hours. And if 11 days is an engineering answer, if your rest was calculated with that kind of precision, you can be certain they applied the same precision to something else. Your ceiling. Rule 5. Your salary range existed before you were interviewed. The interview felt like an evaluation. They asked about your experience, your approach to problems, what you'd bring. You prepared. You answered well, you could feel it in how the conversation moved. You negotiated, maybe. Landed somewhere that felt like a win, or close to it. Here's what was happening on the other side of the table. The range was set before your resume was opened. HR built the salary band in a planning meeting. Market comps. Internal equity targets. What the headcount was approved for in the budget. The band has a floor and a ceiling. The floor is the minimum required to fill the seat. The ceiling is the maximum the role is worth to the organization, independent of who's sitting in it. The interview determined where in that band you'd land, not whether the band applied to you. Most corporate bands span 20 to 30%. A skilled negotiator, someone who knows their number, counters without flinching, sits in the silence after making an ask, can reach the top. That's real money, worth every uncomfortable second of the conversation. But they cannot break it. Breaking the band requires a title change. A title change requires headcount approval. Headcount approval requires a conversation in a planning meeting quarterly, probably that you are not in, where your name is one line in a spreadsheet, where someone is trying to close the document before the end of the fiscal year and get to the next item. The ceiling was poured before the foundation was laid. Chapter 15. Machiavelli is direct here. Men are governed not by what is just, but by what is necessary. The band is necessary. It controls labor cost at scale, maintains internal equity across hundreds of roles, fits the model. Your individual performance is a variable. The model was not built to accommodate outside its existing parameters. This is not malice. This is architecture. And once you see it as architecture, load-bearing walls that are not moving regardless of your output, you stop trying to redecorate. You start asking different questions. Not, how do I reach the top of this band? But, is this the band I should be operating in? And what would it take to be in a different negotiation entirely? Those are the questions the people across the table are asking about their own financial lives, not about their salary, about their position, their leverage, what they're building that isn't contingent on someone else's planning meeting. The locked room isn't personal, it was built that way, which means your response shouldn't be personal either. It should be strategic. But strategy requires seeing what you're actually trading to bump against that ceiling year after year. That cost doesn't appear on any document you've been handed. It's not financial. That's the next rule. And this is where it gets close to the bone. Rule 6. The compound cost is not financial. It's psychological. Everything up to this point was the architecture of the arrangement, the hours, the compliance wage, the retention math, the pre-built ceiling, visible walls. You can push against walls you can see. What I want to talk about now is what happens to a person inside those walls, over years. Because this cost doesn't appear on a pay stub, doesn't show up in a net worth calculation, and by the time most people notice it, it's been compounding quietly for a decade. Martin Seligman. You may have heard of this. He ran experiments with two groups of dogs. First group, mild electric shocks, but a lever in the chamber they could press to stop them. They figured it out. Press the lever. Shock stops. They learned that action produces results. Second group, no lever. Shocks came regardless. Nothing they did made any difference. Then he moved both groups into a new chamber. Low barrier on one side, easy to jump. Clear escape route, right there, visible. First group jumped immediately. Second group didn't. They lay down. They waited for the shock to pass on its own. Even though the barrier was right there, even though nothing was holding them, they had learned, through accumulated experience, through evidence, that their actions did not change outcomes. And when the environment changed, the learning didn't. It became the default. Seligman called it learned helplessness. Now hold that finding next to 15 years in an organization that presets your ceiling, prices your compliance, and calculates the minimum rest required to keep you functional. Nothing violent happens. No single bad day you can point to. The part of you that generates ideas just stops being exercised. The part that asks uncomfortable questions goes quiet, not because someone silenced it, but because the questions kept running into walls. And at some point, the brain, which is efficient above all else, stops sending signals down pathways that don't produce results. It atrophies, quietly, in a way that is very easy to mistake for maturity. The 2023 Gallup Global Workforce Report. 59% of workers worldwide are quietly quitting. Present, functional, meeting the minimum, not invested, not bringing the part of themselves that actually has ideas. The easy read, laziness, entitlement, wrong read. Quiet quitting is a learned philosophical position. It is the conclusion reached slowly, tested repeatedly, confirmed by evidence that the question of whether full engagement produces meaningfully better outcomes for the person doing the engaging is no longer worth asking. Not lazy, rational. The same rationality that made Seligman's dogs lie down. The same thing any organism develops when action and outcome get systematically decoupled over time. Here's the part that matters most. The financial cost of a bad salary is recoverable. Switch jobs, negotiate harder, invest the difference, compound differently starting now. The psychological cost of years of learned helplessness is a different problem entirely. Because the belief that your judgment is worth acting on, that your ideas matter, that the door might open if you try it, that belief was built from experience. Real experience. Attempts that worked. Risks that paid off. Moments where your thinking actually changed something, and it gets rebuilt the same way, from experience. Which takes time, you don't get back by reading about it. This is what I mean when I say, people sell their lives, one decision at a time, not the big decisions. Nobody loses their life to one catastrophic choice they can see clearly afterward. They lose it to the small ones. The daily choice to defer the question, to comply with the arrangement for one more quarter, to save the uncomfortable conversation for a better moment that keeps not arriving. Each one cheap, each one defensible. Together the most expensive purchase most people ever make. And they make it without knowing they're shopping. Everything I've shown you is the structure of the trap, the walls, the ceiling, the math behind the raise, the engineering behind the rest. The psychology of what prolonged exposure does to the part of you that would otherwise be asking better questions. What I haven't shown you yet is the center of it. The one decision underneath all the other decisions. The one that makes every rule in this video possible. The one that was made so quietly, in such small increments, that most people can't remember making it at all. We're there now. Rule 7. Climax. Rule. The original decision was never about money. Everything before this rule was a symptom. Every single one. The hours you didn't price correctly. The compliance you sold without knowing its name. The raise you felt grateful for that was a retention calculation wearing a bow. The rest that was engineered to the minimum viable quantity. The ceiling that existed before you walked in. The slow psychological compounding of years inside a structure designed to make certain questions feel irresponsible. Real. All of it real. But symptoms. Here is the mechanism. Here is what actually happened. Not when you took the job. Not when you signed anything. Somewhere in the years before, and then again, more completely, in the years after. Without announcement. Without a moment you could name. You stopped asking the question, not a question about this specific job or that specific salary or whether you should have taken the other offer. The question underneath all of those, the one that surfaces at 2 in the morning when the house is quiet and there's nothing to buffer you from it. The one your Sunday dread is actually about, if you follow it back far enough. Is this the right life? At some point, that question moved from open to closed. Not because you answered it, because you stopped asking it, because asking it, really asking it, sitting with it long enough to hear an honest answer inside an arrangement that runs on you not asking it, carries a cost. You can feel the cost, even if you've never named it. The mortgage is a powerful question stopper. So is a title you spent 8 years earning. So is a team that depends on you. A manager who actually respects you. A salary that covers everything and leaves a little over at the end of the month. None of those things are bad. Individually, they're real good, the kind you worked for. But together they are an extremely effective architecture for making the question feel irresponsible, selfish, something people entertain before they understand how things actually work. I can't ask whether this is the right life. People are counting on me. This isn't the time. There is never a time. That's not an accident. Chapter 10:20. Machiavelli. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Tell you the truth, you see one thing about yourself. Tell you what you want to hear, you see another. I want to use that differently. The first method for estimating whether a person is free is to look at the questions they've stopped asking. Not the ones they answer badly, not the ones they get wrong, the ones they've quietly retired. The ones that used to surface at 2 in the morning and now don't, not because they got resolved, but because the machinery of daily life became loud enough to cover them, busy enough, full enough, demanding enough that the question couldn't find a gap. 59% of the global workforce disengaged. Gallup, 2023. Not miserable, necessarily. Not actively suffering in ways that require intervention. Just present, functional, meeting requirements. Going through the motions with a competence that makes the going through the motions nearly invisible. Standard diagnosis. They don't like their jobs. Real diagnosis. They have concluded, based on evidence, accumulated over years, tested and confirmed, that the question of whether this is the right life is no longer a productive one to entertain. That's not a mood. That's a philosophical position. And it was taught to them. Not in a classroom, not through any explicit instruction, through the salary band that didn't move, through the raise that didn't beat inflation, through the Sunday that kept bleeding into Saturday, through the idea that went through the filter and came out smaller, and then the next one, and the one after that, until at some point they stopped sending ideas through the filter and called that wisdom. The system didn't break anything with one blow. It made the question feel naive. It made asking whether this is the right life sound like something people say before they have real responsibilities, before they understand, before they grow up. It took the death of the question and repackaged it as the arrival of maturity. That right there is the Machiavellian move, not the salary band, not the retention raise, not the 11 vacation days. The real control is not over your time or your income. It is over your sense of what questions are worth asking at all. The moment you accept that certain questions are no longer appropriate for a person in your position, too risky, too late, too impractical, too selfish, you've handed over something no employment arrangement should ever get to touch. Not your hours, your imagination. And unlike your hours, which are taken visibly, incrementally, in units you can count, your imagination goes in a single moment. You don't notice, because it's framed as something else, framed as finally understanding, as maturity, as the responsible acceptance of how things actually work. The people who have genuinely exited this arrangement, not the ones who found a better salary band, but the ones who changed their relationship to the whole negotiation. They didn't find a secret system. They didn't stumble onto information unavailable to everyone else. They kept asking. That's it. That is the entire delta between the people who move through money differently and the people who don't. The willingness to hold the question open, to resist quietly, without drama, without quitting anything tomorrow, the machinery that frames the question's closure as wisdom. To look at the arrangement clearly, without bitterness, because bitterness is just another way of not seeing accurately, and ask, is this the deal I would make if I made it consciously? Today, knowing what I know now, sometimes the answer is yes. A conscious yes is worth something real. It is not the same animal as a yes by default. A yes you arrived at by actually looking. That's a foundation, something you can build on. Sometimes the answer is no, and a clear no, even one you can't act on immediately, even one that requires 6 months or 2 years to move on, changes how you operate right now. It changes what you build quietly on the side, what you save differently, what you stop spending your best thinking on and start directing somewhere that compounds towards something you actually chose. You cannot get the hours back. 82,000, or whatever portion of them is already spent, those are gone. You can get the question back. That's not optimism. I'm not interested in optimism. That's mechanics. The question doesn't require a dramatic gesture, doesn't require a resignation letter, or a pivot, or a brand new plan. It requires only that you stop treating its absence as a sign of your maturity and start treating it as a cost you are paying right now. One small, quiet, reasonable, defensible decision at a time. Close. Pull back for a second. Not from your job, from the frame. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince as a manual for cruelty. That reading followed the book for centuries, and it was always a misreading convenient for people who wanted to dismiss what he was actually doing. He wrote it for men who wanted to understand how power moves. Beneath the official story, beneath the polite version everyone agrees to repeat in public, beneath the framing that serves the people doing the framing, his project was accuracy, uncomfortable, undecorated accuracy, the conviction that a person who sees a system clearly is better positioned than a person who sees it charitably. Not better morally, better practically, better equipped to make decisions that are actually their own. That's what this was. Not a case against employment, not an argument for quitting, not a promise that freelancing is cleaner or that entrepreneurship pays off. or that the people who left corporate America are happier. Some are, some aren't, and that variance tells you something worth sitting with. The arrangement isn't the whole story. What you do inside it or outside it with clear eyes, that's the story. The point was never the job, the point was the posture. You can stay in the exact same role after this. Same office, same manager, same salary band that existed before you ever interviewed. But you cannot stay in the same unconscious relationship to it, because now you've seen the band for what it is, an architectural decision, not a verdict on your worth. You've seen the raise for what it is, a retention calculation, not recognition. You've seen your 11 days for what they are, a maintenance schedule with engineering behind it. You've seen the compliance wage for what it is, payment for predictability, not for the best version of your thinking. And you've seen the question. Not irresponsible, not naive, not something that belongs to younger people with fewer obligations. The question is the asset. The people who genuinely move differently through their financial lives kept asking it. That's the practice. Not a strategy, not a system, not a framework with numbered steps. A practice, daily. The refusal to let the machinery classify the question as closed just because keeping it open is inconvenient for the arrangement you're currently in. The most expensive thing you own is not in your wallet. It's the question you stopped asking, and the price of getting it back the only price. The real one is deciding it's worth asking again. That's it. That's the whole thing. CTA. Most people who watch something like this will think about it. Today, maybe tomorrow. Then Monday arrives. The inbox. The meeting already on the calendar. The thing that needs handling before the thing that needs handling after that. And this fades not because it wasn't true, not because it didn't land, but because the machinery of a life built around the arrangement is very good at absorbing exactly the kind of thinking that threatens to disturb it. That's not weakness. That's the system functioning as designed. A smaller number of people will do something different, not dramatic, not necessarily this week. But they'll hold the question open a little longer than they would have yesterday. They'll look at the next raise with different eyes, not with resentment, but with accuracy. They'll notice the Sunday feeling and name it correctly, instead of managing it with a better playlist or an earlier bedtime. Naming it correctly is where it starts, not with a plan, with an accurate name for the thing. If you're in that second group, you already know it. There's something happening right now, some specific thought about your specific situation that this video either confirmed or cracked open. You don't need me to tell you what to do with it. You already know what the next question is. And if this is the kind of thinking you want, more of the kind that doesn't soften the arrangement, doesn't dress it in better lighting, doesn't tell you that you're doing great and just need to optimize your morning routine, it's here. Same channel, same refusal to make this comfortable. Most people will scroll past, a few won't. You already know which one you are.